My name is Hannah Brooks. I am 27 years old, and the day my mother called my wedding an embarrassment in front of everyone was the moment I realized she was afraid of something much bigger than my happiness. People always say you remember your wedding day forever. They're right, but not always for the reasons you expect. I had known my mom, Carol, would be difficult. She had spent my entire life reminding me that I was too soft, too emotional, and not impressive enough. Growing up, nothing I did ever felt right. Good grades were expected. Achievements were luck. Mistakes were proof that I was a disappointment. Still, some part of me hoped my wedding would be different. I met Ryan 5 years ago. He was steady, thoughtful, and kind in a way that didn't demand anything in return. Being with him felt like breathing after holding my breath my entire life. When he proposed, I cried harder than I expected, not just from joy, but from fear. I knew my mother would never fully approve. She didn't. From the moment we announced the engagement, she found flaws. The ring was too simple. The venue was cheap-looking. The guest list was embarrassing. When I asked if she wanted to help with anything, she waved me off and said, "Do whatever you want. Just don't expect me to pretend it's perfect." I paid for most of the wedding myself. Ryan and I wanted something meaningful, not flashy. Close friends, family who actually cared, warm lights, and music that felt like us. Daniel, Ryan's father, welcomed me like I had always belonged. His mother hugged me often and told me she was proud of me. Those words felt foreign. On the morning of the wedding, my mom criticized everything. My dress was too plain. My makeup was trying too hard. My smile looked forced. I stood in front of the mirror and told myself one thing over and over: this day is mine. The ceremony itself was beautiful. When I walked down the aisle, Ryan's eyes filled with tears. For a few minutes, nothing else existed. Not my childhood. Not my mother's voice. Just us. I thought maybe, just maybe, she would behave. The reception proved me wrong. After dinner, the microphone was passed around for speeches. Ryan's sister spoke first. She talked about love, patience, and how happy she was to see her brother so grounded. People laughed. Some cried. Then my mother stood up. I felt my stomach drop. She took the microphone, smiled at the room, and said, "Well, I suppose it's my turn." Her tone was light. Almost joking. "I'll be honest," she continued. "When Hannah told me she was getting married, I was shocked." A few awkward laughs. She was never the kind of girl I imagined having a wedding like this. She looked around the room. "I mean, no offense, but this whole thing feels a little embarrassing." The room went silent. My heart pounded so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. She wasn't finished. "I just hope Ryan knows what he's getting into," she added. "Marriage is a lot of responsibility, and Hannah has always needed guidance." My hands were shaking. I felt small again, like the child who learned early to stay quiet so things wouldn't get worse. I looked at Ryan. His face was calm, but his jaw was tight. He squeezed my hand gently, grounding me. My mom raised her glass. "But hey, if this makes her happy, who am I to stop it?" That was the moment something inside me shifted. I stood up. The room stirred. My mother looked surprised, almost annoyed, as if I had broken an unspoken rule. I took the microphone from her hand. "I spent most of my life believing something was wrong with me," I said calmly. Believing that love had to be earned, and silence meant strength. The room was completely still, but today, I continued, I learned something important. Embarrassment isn't about appearances. It's about behavior. My mother's smile disappeared. "I am not embarrassed by this wedding," I said. "I am proud of it. Proud of the love, the people here, and the life I'm building." I turned slightly toward Ryan. "And I'm proud of the man standing beside me." Applause began, slow at first, then stronger. I handed the microphone back and sat down. My mother didn't look at me. She stared at her plate, rigid and pale. I thought that would be the worst moment of the day. I was wrong. Because what everyone was about to see, what my mother never expected, was the truth she had spent years trying to hide. After I sat down, the reception continued, but nothing felt the same. Conversations were quieter. People kept glancing at my mother's table, then back at me. I felt exposed, but not weak. For the first time in my life, I hadn't protected her at my own expense. Ryan leaned close and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." Those words wrapped around me like armor. The rest of the night passed in fragments. Dancing. Photos. Smiles that felt real again. My mother left early without saying goodbye. I noticed, but I didn't chase her. That alone told me how much I had changed. When we reached our hotel room later that night, the weight of everything finally hit me. I sat on the bed, still in my dress, staring at the floor. Ryan sat beside me, his hand warm on my back. "She crossed a line," he said gently. "She's been crossing lines my whole life," I replied. For a long time, I thought her words at the wedding were just cruelty. But as I replayed her expression, tight, nervous, defensive, I realized something deeper was happening. She hadn't just been trying to hurt me. She had been afraid. The next morning, my phone was full of messages. Friends. Ryan's family. Even distant relatives. "You handled that with grace. I'm sorry you went through that. You didn't deserve it." One message stood out. It was from my Aunt Melissa, my mother's older sister. "We need to talk. There are things you should know. I didn't want you to find out this way." My chest tightened. I had barely spoken to Aunt Melissa growing up. My mother always said she was jealous and loved stirring drama. But now, I wondered how much of that was true. Ryan encouraged me to meet her. "Truth has a way of healing, even when it hurts," he said. We met 2 days later at a quiet diner. Melissa looked tired but determined. She didn't waste time. "I'm sorry about your wedding," she said. "Your mother shouldn't have done that." But what scared her wasn't the wedding. I frowned. "Then what was it?" She took a deep breath. "You standing up for yourself." That made my stomach twist. "Hannah," she continued, "your mother has controlled the narrative of your life for a long time. About your father. About money. About who you are." My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "Worn. Old. Your grandparents left something for you," she said quietly. "A lot more than you were ever told." I felt dizzy. My mom said there was nothing. That they barely had enough for themselves. Melissa shook her head. "That's not true." She opened the folder and slid papers across the table. Legal documents. Bank statements. A trust agreement with my name on it. My hands trembled as I read. "They set it up when you were 10, she explained. For your education. Your future. Your independence." I swallowed hard. "Where is it?" Melissa met my eyes. "Your mother had control over it." Everything inside me went cold. "She told the family you used it irresponsibly," Melissa said. "That you wasted it." But when I started asking questions years ago, she cut me off. Memories flooded back. Working late nights through college. Student loans. Skipped meals. The constant guilt of being a burden. It hadn't been sacrifice. It had been theft. I left the diner in a daze. Ryan held me while I cried in the car. Not the loud kind of crying, just silent tears that came from something breaking open after years of pressure. Now I understood why my mother looked terrified at the wedding. She saw control slipping. Over the next few weeks, I requested official records. Court filings. Trust histories. Everything confirmed what Melissa had told me. The money was gone. Redirected. Spent. When I confronted my mother, I didn't raise my voice. I went to her house alone. She opened the door with a forced smile. "So," she said, "are you done punishing me?" "I know about the trust," I said calmly. Her face drained of color. "You had no right to look into that," she snapped. "I had every right," I replied. "It was mine." She scoffed. "You wouldn't have survived without me." "You mean without my own money?" I asked. Her voice rose. "I did what I had to do." "For control?" I asked quietly. Silence. In that silence, I saw the truth clearly. She wasn't ashamed. She was angry she'd been exposed. "I won't protect you anymore," I said. "Not from the truth. Not from consequences." I walked out without waiting for a response. That night, as Ryan and I sat together, I realized something important. The terrifying thing my mother saw wasn't revenge. It was independence. And she was about to see just how powerful it could be. After I walked away from my mother's house, I didn't feel relief right away. I felt hollow. Like a room that had finally been emptied but still echoed. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at nothing, replaying her face when I said the money was mine. Not guilt. Not regret. Fear. That was when I understood something clearly for the first time in my life. My mother wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing control. The days that followed were heavy. I functioned, but everything felt slower. I went to work. I answered emails. I smiled when people congratulated me on the wedding. But inside, I was sorting through memories, lining them up against the truth, and realizing how much of my life had been shaped by lies I never questioned. Ryan noticed. One evening, he sat beside me on the couch and said gently, "You don't have to carry this alone." So I didn't. I started therapy. I didn't go in with a plan. I just started talking. About my childhood. About always feeling like I owed my mother something. About the constant fear of disappointing her. About how standing up for myself felt both powerful and terrifying. My therapist said something that stayed with me. "You weren't difficult," she said. "You were controlled." That sentence changed how I saw everything. I began to understand why my mother calling my wedding an embarrassment had cut so deeply. It wasn't just public humiliation. It was an attempt to pull me back into my old place. To remind me who she thought I was. But I wasn't that person anymore. A few weeks later, Aunt Melissa called me again. "There's something else," she said carefully. "About your father." My chest tightened. My mother had always said he was unreliable. That he chose to leave. That he didn't care. "That's not true, is it?" I asked. "No," Melissa replied. "He tried to stay." She told me everything. How my father fought for visitation. How he sent letters and gifts that never reached me. How my mother moved without telling him, changed numbers, and told everyone he disappeared on his own. I felt sick. I found him online that night. My hands shook as I typed a message I never thought I'd send. "Hi. My name is Hannah. I believe I'm your daughter." He replied within minutes. "I've been hoping for this message for years." We met at a small park a week later. I almost turned back twice. When I saw him standing there, older, nervous, holding his hands together like he didn't know what to do, I felt a strange mix of fear and familiarity. He didn't hug me right away. He asked if he could. That alone told me more than my entire childhood had. We talked for hours. He showed me copies of court papers. Old photos. Birthday cards he never got to give me. He apologized, not because he was guilty, but because he hated that he couldn't protect me from the truth sooner. "You were never unwanted," he said quietly. "You were taken from me." That sentence settled something deep inside my chest. For the first time, the story of my life made sense. As I rebuilt pieces of myself, my mother unraveled. she started calling, leaving voicemails that shifted in tone. First angry, then wounded, then pleading. "You're turning everyone against me," she said in one. "I did everything for you," she said in another. "You owe me respect." I didn't respond. Silence, I learned, is only cruel when it's used to punish. When it's used to protect, it's peace. Ryan and I built our routines. Quiet mornings. Shared dinners. Honest conversations. His family welcomed me without expectations. No tests. No conditions. Just warmth. One night, his mother hugged me and said, "I'm glad you stood up for yourself at the wedding." I swallowed hard. I almost didn't. "I know," she said softly. "But you did. That matters." A few months later, my mother sent a letter. Handwritten. Long, careful. She wrote about sacrifice. About how hard her life had been. About how much she gave up. She explained her choices in detail. Justified every lie. She never apologized. At the end, she wrote, "I hope one day you'll understand." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Understanding didn't mean accepting abuse. And empathy didn't require access. The legal process took time. I didn't pursue it for revenge. I pursued it for truth. Accountability. Closure. Some things couldn't be undone, but they could be named. My mother hated that, through family, I heard she told people I had changed. That marriage had corrupted me. That I was ungrateful. I didn't correct the story, I was done explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. One evening, Ryan and I hosted a small dinner. Friends. His parents. My father, sitting quietly at the table, unsure where he fit. But he fit. He listened when I spoke. He didn't interrupt. He didn't criticize. He didn't try to rewrite the past. He just showed up. That's when it hit me. What my mother found terrifying wasn't exposure. It was comparison. Because once people saw how I thrived without her control, her version of motherhood no longer made sense. And once I saw it too, I could never unsee it. I wasn't broken. I had been suppressed. And now, I was finally visible. The final change didn't arrive with noise or drama. It arrived with clarity. One morning, months after the wedding, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about my mother in days. No replaying her words. No imagining what she would say if she knew what I was doing. No quiet guilt sitting in my chest. Just calm. That was when I understood something important: healing isn't loud. Freedom doesn't announce itself. It settles in when fear leaves. Ryan and I moved into a new place that spring. A modest home with wide windows and a small backyard. As we painted the walls and arranged furniture, I noticed how natural it felt to make decisions without bracing myself for criticism. I chose colors because I liked them. I hung photos where I wanted. I lived without permission. That alone felt revolutionary. My relationship with my father grew slowly, with care. We didn't try to make up for lost years or pretend nothing bad had happened. We acknowledged the pain and respected its weight. Sometimes we talked about the past. Sometimes we talked about nothing at all. The silence between us was never uncomfortable. One afternoon, he gave me a small box. "I kept these," he said. "I didn't know if you'd ever want them." Inside were letters. Birthday cards. Notes written in careful handwriting. Each one was dated. Each one ended the same way. "Love always, Dad," I cried, not because I was sad, but because something deep inside me finally felt confirmed. I hadn't imagined being loved. It had always been there. Just blocked. Therapy helped me untangle the rest. I learned how often I had minimized myself to keep peace. How I confused control with care. How I believed love was something you earned by being quiet, agreeable, useful. I unlearned all of it. The biggest shift came when I stopped asking why my mother did what she did. Why keeps you trapped? Understanding motives doesn't undo damage. Acceptance, I learned, wasn't forgiving her. It was accepting that she would never be the mother I needed, and that it was okay to grieve that without chasing her approval. She tried one last time. She showed up at my workplace unannounced. When I saw her standing in the lobby, my heart raced, but it didn't collapse. She looked smaller than I remembered. Less confident. Her power had always depended on my reaction, and now she didn't have it. "We need to talk," she said. I took a slow breath. "No, we don't." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm your mother." "And I'm not your property," I replied calmly. She looked around, embarrassed. "You're really going to do this? Just cut me off?" "I'm not cutting you off," I said. "I'm choosing myself." She waited for anger. For an argument. For guilt. I gave her none. I walked past her and went back to my desk. That night, I didn't feel victorious. I felt grounded. Steady. Whole. Months later, Ryan and I gathered our closest people in our living room. Laughter filled the space. Warmth. Safety. I held a small frame in my hands, my heart beating fast. Inside it was an ultrasound photo. I was going to be a mother. The thought didn't scare me. It strengthened me. I thought about the home I wanted to create. One where love wasn't conditional. Where mistakes weren't used as weapons. Where a child never had to earn safety or silence their feelings to be accepted. I knew exactly what I would never repeat. And I knew exactly what I would give. That night, after everyone left, Ryan wrapped his arms around me. "You okay?" he asked softly. I smiled. "I'm more than okay." I was ready. Ready to break cycles. Ready to tell the truth without fear. Ready to raise a child who would never doubt their worth. I never heard from my mother again directly. Through relatives, I heard stories. That I had changed. That marriage had turned me against her. That she didn't understand how her own daughter could abandon her. I didn't correct the story. People who know you don't need explanations. People who choose not to see you never will. The truth that followed her calling my wedding an embarrassment didn't just expose her in front of others. It exposed her to herself. And in doing so, it gave me everything she never could. Peace. Freedom. And a future built on truth. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing for someone who thrives on control isn't revenge. It's watching the person they tried to break finally live without them.